In this video, we're going to draft the back bodice using our ruler and our mechanical pencil. And the first line that we're going to draw at the top of your page is a horizontal line equal to half the full width of back. And mark points 1A. From point A, square a line down equal to the full length and mark point 2. And if you remember in taking the measurements, the full length is from the nape of the neck in the back down to the center waist point. And square a line down from point 1, a line equal to the full length also. From point 2, measure up the center length and mark point 3. From point A, measure off half the across back and mark point 4. And square a line down parallel to the center back about 5 inches. From point 2 to any place on the line squared down from point 4, draw a line equal to the slope of shoulder and square a short line out to the left and mark point 5. From point 3 to any place on the line squared to the left of point 5, draw a line equal to half the across shoulder and mark point 6. From point 6 to any place on line A4, draw a line equal to the shoulder width and mark point 7. On line 6-7, square a short line down from point 7 through line 6-3 and mark that intersection point 8 and draw a smooth curved neckline from point 7 to point 3. Extend line 7-6 through point 6 5/8 of an inch and mark point B. From point 6 on line 4, measure down 4 inches and mark point C. Line 6C is part of your full side length. And if you remember in taking the measurements, just like we did in the front, we start at the tip of the shoulder and measure down 4 inches and then go over to the waist point on the side. And this is the remainder from your 4 inches of your full side length. It's very important because it's going to match your front when we walk them together. From point C to any place on line 1, draw a line equal to the remainder of the full side length and mark point 9. Draw the waistline from point 9 to point 2 and measure this line and record it. Next, you will subtract half the back waist from the recorded measurement of line 9-2 and divide the difference in half and record. From point 9 measure off 1/2 of the recorded difference and mark point D. This measurement seems insignificant, but it's very important. It's a very small measurement. It's going to be like 7/8. Could be 1.5 inches, depending on your body type. Might even be as low as 3/16. But it just depends on what your measurements are. It's very important to our center side length and the fitting. From point C, draw a line the same length as line C9 through point D and mark point E. Draw a line equal to the center side length from point E to any place on line 9-1 and mark point 10. Now what's happening here is point E on our dress form becomes our center side length, and it's actually just a little bit lower off of our waist point, and it's going to go up to where our Armscye is basically. And then what we're going to do is we're going to square a line over to the center back, and you'll see in the draft. On line 1-9, square a line across from point 10 to the center back and mark point F. And then draw a curved Armscye from points B, C, 10. And now we're going to draft the back waist dart. Find the center of line 10F and mark point 11. Remember, line 10F is going to be that line that you just drew, and then you're going to find the center of it, and you're going to mark that point 11, and you're going to square a line down off of this line up here. It's very important, not down here on the waist, because the waist is at a tilt. This one here is at a perfect 90 degrees. From point 11, on line 10F, square a line down to line 9-2 and mark point G. Measure off half of line 9D. Now, in my case, it's 7/8, so half of 7/8. Or I'm going to put 7/16 on each side of point G, and I'm going to mark each side of G, H, and I. So in the explanation sheet, you'll see the explanation on checking your measurements. And you can read that and check your measurements against your draft and see if you're correct. Draw the dart legs from point 11 to points I and H. Draw a line from point E to G. This is your back shoulder dart. It's very important, and it's very standard. The measurements in it are standard 5/8, and we're going to divide that by 2. So do the math on that one. Find the center of line B7 and mark point 12. Then from point 12, we're going to connect to point 11 and draw a 3-inch line and mark point 13. On each side of point 12, measure off half of line B6 and mark point J and K, and draw the dart legs from 13 to points J and K. Line E10, this is actually your stitching line if you added 5/8 seam allowance, you'll be making a cutting line. So then we're going to walk the patterns together. You're going to bring over your front bodice that you drafted in the last video. We're going to fold out the dart, and we're going to line up point 13 with point 10. We're going to put them together like this, and you walk down the stitching line on top of the stitching line in the front to the back, minus the seam allowance, and you can see that they fit. So if you mark the seam allowance point right here, then you fold out the dart leg, make it nice and pretty, and you have your ruler, and we have our seam allowance. From here, we make 5/8 seam allowance on over there, and we take our ruler here and we make our cutting line. We add 3/4 seam allowance to the back, and we add 5/8 seam allowance to the Armscye, to both pieces, and we make our Armscye. Fold out our shoulder dart from line 7 to point B. We draw a stitching line, and then we add 5/8 seam allowance, and then we cut like this, and we want it to look like this. But we'll fold this out right here, and we'll walk our front point 10 on line 10/8 right here, and line point 10 up with 7, add our seam allowance. We put our edge here, we cut them out. That completes our back draft. But if you're using a dress form like I am, just like you did in the front, you will extend a line out from point 10 and point E 1/2 inch and draw in a new cutting line to make a new side seam. And this is our center front, but it's also known as our fold line. We're going to cut all of this in muslin to do our fitting on the half in the front, and then the back we're going to leave the back here open when we cut. And that concludes our back bodice draft. In the next video, we're going to lay out all of our pattern pieces on muslin and cut them out, press out the darts, sew it up, and make a fitter. And then we're going to do a fitting. I'll see you in the next video.